This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Big Ten Football Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Zach Guggenheim. We're going to talk about the national championship game, the recap, what it means for Ryan Day and his legacy, what it means for the Big Ten. But first, I do want to start. I've been hinting at a big announcement. It's not a big announcement necessarily for everyone. It's a big announcement for me, and it's a big announcement in regards to this show. This is the last episode of this show forever, that at least until God says bring it back. But this is the last episode of the Big Ten Football Talk Podcast. I have tried to do this and be the co-host of the Big Ten Huddle, and it just hasn't worked, at least in terms of my time frame and thinking of different topics. And I think it's gotten to the point where it just doesn't make sense for me to do this show and to do the Big Ten Huddle. So I'm not leaving the podcast space. I'm going to do a lot of the same stuff that I've done over at the Huddle. We're going to do the kind of the State of the Union again, like we did this past offseason, just over at the Big Ten Huddle. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go and follow the Big Ten Huddle, subscribe, like the videos over there. We go live on Tuesdays and Sundays. JR does a bunch of stuff too. We're also going to start offering memberships over there, so feel free to do that. But make sure to follow the Big Ten Huddle on Twitter. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. But I say that I want to really give a lot of thanks. And I want to start with this because I know if I wait till the end of the episode, a lot of people won't get their credit and their due. When I started this thing, it was in 2021. It was the beginning of post-COVID era where, fans could be back in the stands again. And what this started as was it was just a hobby, and it was kind of a shot in the dark. It's like, hey, I've got an account with Anchor, now Spotify with podcasters. What the heck? I might as well, talk into a microphone. And I did that thinking that maybe my mom would listen. And she did. And that was all I thought. Like, I was like, okay, I'll do this for a few episodes, see what happens. And within a week, I had emails from guys like Luke from Illinois who are like, hey, love the show. And I was like, man, people are listening to me from Illinois. I'm in Pennsylvania. What the heck is going on? And what happened was this small following that happened that I really loved to engage with and interact with. And so I thought maybe I'd do it for a year and see what happened. And it became a 4-year journey in this podcast space. And I've just been very, very thankful for that. And so I do want to say thanks to a lot of people who have made this happen. I'm not going to get everybody, and I'm sorry if I miss you and you're like, I made an impact to this. And by no means am I trying to neglect you. There's a lot of people I want to thank. First and foremost is the Lord. I hope I've glorified him in this space, in how I've talked about football and how I've talked about the Big Ten. I hope we've had fun. I hope I've glorified him in that fun and that joy. But I just really thank him for the opportunity and making the pathways straight to do this. I want to thank my parents. I want to thank my mom because she is always, saying nice things about me. Even if I screw up completely, she's always going to say a nice thing to encourage me. My dad, who put money behind this and was really willing to go to bat for me, and other family members as well. My cousin Becca, who gave us equipment to kind of help improve the show. And Taylor, her husband, just so grateful that they would do that. And the rest of my family that have listened in over the years. I want to thank my wife and my kids, Heather, Shane, JJ, and Paisley. They let me kind of steal away for nights and time to do this hobby, to re-energize my soul. I want to thank Jim and Chris Ebersol. Those guys got on this journey with me early. Chris has been on the show before. They have been super encouraging, and just really grateful for them. Thankful for a number of folks in my ministry that I work with. Just so thankful that they have been encouraging. Caleb Olszewski, Mark Fodale, several others, Lincoln Fitch. Just so grateful for just their encouragement, even just by saying, "Hey, we listen." It's like you didn't have to listen, but you did, and yeah, just really grateful. Tim, who listens, is a big time Rutgers fan. I'm going to go by your Twitter handles. I'm not going to use your real names, but Yankee Wolverine, being across the aisle, being a Wolverine fan. Grateful for your constant encouragement. Sean Morosi, grateful for you. Illini Bubba, and from, I forget all the numbers, but you guys, Illinois fans who have jokingly mocked me for every time I pick Illinois, which, by the way, my first ever pick was in favor of Illinois, and they did win. So I'm not always a curse for you guys or a blessing when I pick against you. But grateful for you guys and all the ways that you've encouraged me. Countless Michigan fans, countless Ohio State fans who have tuned into the show. Justin Adams, who you've come on the show a few times, just grateful for you. JR, Jonathan Rhodes, just how you took a chance on me and wanting me to be your co-host. Gave me a lot more confidence than I've ever had. Eric Boggs, who brought me into the college huddle fold. And Penn State University for giving me a press pass, for letting me come and cover you guys. Just, I could go on and on and on. So thankful for all the people that have tuned in over the years and given me encouragement. It's not over. It's just that this show is ending. So again, make sure you go over to the Big Ten Huddle, subscribe. Make sure you go over to the College Huddle, read our content, listen to the other great podcasters over there. They have some great insight into the programs of the Big Ten. One of my favorites, Larry Crane, over at Night Watch. Great for Rutgers content. Also, I want to thank. Blanking on their names, man, and it frustrates me because I think they're the best Michigan podcasters in the biz. But Maize and Blue, Andy and Jared, man, how could I forget your names? But some of the best Michigan guys on the beat, amazing guys over at Maize and Brew. So yeah, really grateful to be a part of this, and yeah, thank you for the ride. Let's talk about the national championship. I get to end on a really high note as a Buckeye fan. As Ohio State wins the national championship, they win 34-23. Ohio State, I thought, proved over the course of this playoff what we thought going into the season, that they had the best roster and that if they played up to their potential, they would win the national championship, that nobody could beat them. I thought Ohio State, over the course of this playoff, did that. And they didn't even play their best every game, right? I thought against Texas, they had self-inflicted wounds. I thought against Notre Dame, there was a period of time where I think they were a little discombobulated, especially on defense. as they were trying to protect that lead. But you cannot question how talented this team was, and more importantly, their resolve. And I'll get to their resolve in a minute. But Ohio State won every playoff game by at least 11 points. Their lowest margin of victory was against Notre Dame. They won by 25, 20, 14, and 11. Now you can caveat that, right? Well, they beat Texas by 14, but I mean, that game was in the balance till the end. It was, but I don't think even that goal line stand, which will live in Ohio State lore forever, I don't think it tells the whole story of that game. If Ohio State doesn't keep shooting itself in the foot, that game probably is a much more comfortable win. But the reality is it's hard to execute, even when you're more talented. It's hard to execute drive in and drive out, game in, game out. And they had been so dominant those first two games that they finally had some hiccups. I don't think that the Texas narrative that, well, Texas was actually even with Ohio State, I don't think that's true. I think Ohio State was easily the better team. Easily may not be the right word there. They were the better team. And Texas had a shot to win it anyway at the end because Texas had enough talent to make them pay. But I think at the end of the day, you look at Ohio State, how they were able to move the ball, the story of that game was self-inflicted wounds. Against Notre Dame, I think the story of this game was it was 31-7. Ohio State was clearly the better team. But Notre Dame had the grit and the drive to come back and make this thing close. And I want to talk about Notre Dame for a minute because I think a lot of people will criticize Marcus Freeman for some of his calls. The field goal in the fourth quarter instead of going for it on 4th and goal from the 9. I can understand that. I can understand why people are going to criticize. People are going to criticize the fake punt. I can understand. But to me, the story for Notre Dame is the grit and the have to that Notre Dame displayed. And that speaks of culture. That speaks of self-belief. That speaks of a winning attitude. I have no doubt that Notre Dame will be back. I have no doubt that they will be back. And I think if this were a different team, even Texas, I think Notre Dame wins this game because they were that good and they were that gritty and they believed in themselves and they believed in each other. But Ohio State not only has the talent, I think they also have the culture. They have the culture. And I want to get to that in a minute. But I think a couple other things. I had picked TreVeyon Henderson to be my MVP. And I think it would have made sense. But it's Quinshon Judkins, who he wasn't the MVP, but he was the running back that made a lot of the key plays in this game. And for all, he was not very productive in this playoff. He had several touchdowns, right? 2 in the Tennessee game, 2 in the Texas game, and he had some great moments. But it wasn't like they were just so good. Or like it's not like he had a ridiculously impressive playoff run. Like, I think everybody looked at TreVeyon and was like, oh, he's been the premier back in this playoff for Ohio State. But Quinshon Judkins made us remember why he was so important of a pickup. Now, he was important because he kept TreVeyon Henderson fresh. Yes. Eclipsed 100 yards rushing. Had a receiving touchdown. Had 3 touchdowns overall in this game. Was a force. Had the longest run in college football playoff national championship history in this game. A 70-yard run helped really put this game not away, but really made it severely in doubt for Notre Dame. You got to give a ton of credit to him. Got to give a lot of credit to Donovan Jackson, who in this playoff, after moving from left guard to left tackle, has allowed one pressure. One. And everybody's talking about it now, but everybody needs to talk about that. He was playing left guard 8 or 9 games ago. His first game at left tackle was against Abdul Carter, allowed 2 sacks because Abdul Carter is Abdul Carter. He's a freak. Since then, he has faced ridiculously good pass rushers. Jordan Birch, James Pierce, Jordan Simmons, and the pass rushers, I'm forgetting, Kaliakamaka, I think is his name, Oben from Notre Dame. 0 sacks, 1 pressure. That's an insane run. That's insane. And I would not be shocked if he sneaks into the first round. Speaking of guys who are rising on draft boards, can we talk about Will Howard for a minute? Will Howard, I think, threw one pass in this game where I was like, I don't know if I like that. And it wasn't even a bad throw. It was a 50-50 ball between Travion Henderson and Xavier Watts. That was like the only throw where you're like, I don't like that. And then there was another throw where he's getting pressured with Jeremiah Smith in the flat. It's like, oh man, typically you hit that. Every other throw and every other decision was amazing. Like, he was phenomenal in this game. He was locked in. He led the team. He ran when he needed to run. He threw on the run. He threw from the pocket. He threw over the middle. He threw on intermediate throws. He threw deep. I can't say enough about that kid. He is phenomenal. Phenomenal. And he has progressed game in and game out. I was a doubter of Will Howard. I said, I don't know if he's going to be better than Kyle McCord. I don't know if he's going to be better than Kyle. I don't know if I would have taken him over Cam Ward. I don't know if I would have taken, I would have taken him over Cam Ward. I think the Cam Ward hype is still a bit overhyped. But there are some reports saying that he might have solidly positioned himself as the 3rd quarterback overall in this draft after this playoff run. And I don't see how you can't, right? Like, you look at the quarterbacks in this draft. First of all, it's a weak quarterback draft. Shedeur and Cam, if this was a different quarterback class, they're not top 5 picks. Like, I'm sorry. I think you guys know, if you listen to the show for a while, you know my position on quarterback. I think it's the most overdrafted, overvalued position in the draft because of the bust or risk reward ratio. Like, you get a lot of quarterbacks who you draft, who you're like, this is going to save our franchise, and they bust out. And I don't think the ceiling for these guys is super high. And I just don't think the success rate is going to be great. I think Will Howard is kind of a high floor, maybe lower ceiling type of guy. But like, I think he's certainly a solid, like, he's going to be a guy who holds a clipboard for, 12, 15 years. I think he also could be a solid starter if he continues to grow and progress the way he has. He makes quick decisions. He sees the field well. He has good, like, adequate to good arm strength. It's not elite. But when his feet are right, when his eyes are right, when his mechanics are good, he's been phenomenal. He's been phenomenal. And he was phenomenal again in this game. I thought he played his best in these 4 playoff games against the 4 best defenses, aside from Michigan, I would say. The 4 best defenses he's faced, maybe also against Penn State, but he has been phenomenal in this playoff run. And it's not just the receivers. It's, he has had to navigate a offensive line who, by the way, that offensive line, they, the way they've gelled, hats off to Justin Fry. But I think you got to give Will Howard a lot of credit for being able to navigate those offensive line injuries, for leading this team, and for distributing, delivering, playmaking, all the above. Fantastic. He's fantastic. I want to talk about the legacy of Ryan Day. And I need to start by saying, and I said this on Twitter, I have been a Ryan Day doubter. I love Ryan Day, and I loved him before, but I've been a doubter that he can get it done at Ohio State. Affectionately, felt like he was John Cooper 2.0. If you're like, I don't know who John Cooper is, just look up John Cooper, Ohio State. He's known by his record against Michigan, 2-10-1. 2-10-1. Lost a lot of national championship opportunities because of Michigan. Derailed a lot of seasons. And I thought Ryan Day was a lot like John Cooper. And it wasn't just Michigan, it was bowl games. Struggled in bowl games a lot. Lost a lot to the SEC. Lost to Peyton Manning and the Tennessee Volunteers. Lost to Florida State in a bowl game. Lost to a number of different teams in bowl games. And so the trend felt like that's where Ryan Day is going. And you guys know my mantra. Sometimes you just are who you are. Said that a lot about Scott Frost. Said that about a lot of other coaches. Sometimes you're just who you are. And I was getting to that point with Ryan Day where I was like, all right, you have all this talent. You welcomed the pressure, right? You welcome the pressure, Natty or bust. You welcome that. And then you get to Michigan and you fumble the ball. You fumble the ball. And what I saw from that team was when the pressure got hot, the team seemed to take on the personality of their head coach, which is he got tight. He got tight. And so what happened in this game that I think is indicative not just of this game, but I think the legacy of Ryan Day, he's changed. He's changed. So here's what I'm going to say. I'm not going to apologize for criticizing Ryan Day. And I think people who are saying that he didn't deserve any criticism, guys like Dennis Dodd who are saying he should leave Buckeye Nation behind, all that stuff. That's a joke. It's a joke because it was deserved criticism. It was deserved criticism. And if there's any writer worth their salt, any media member who's worth their salt, they are right. They were right to criticize. And if you're sitting there saying, you shouldn't criticize him, it's just Michigan, you don't understand the Ohio State job. Sorry, you don't. Now, that's not to condone some of the vitriol that came towards Ryan Day's kids, that came towards his wife. That's not okay. But it was fine and justified to question whether Ryan Day deserved this job. And the reason was because for the past 4 or 5 years, we saw the same thing happen. When things got tough, Ryan Day got tight. And so did his team. Until this playoff run. And this is why it's the greatest redemption story, at least in Ohio State history, and maybe a top 5 redemption story in all of college football. Because Ryan Day was the most fun I've ever seen him. Like he had the most fun and joy I've ever seen him in big moments, in small moments. And this team rallied. And nothing epitomized that more than 3rd and 11, game on the line, 31-23. They don't get this play. They give the ball back to Notre Dame with all the momentum. And at 30 seconds before, I tweeted, Michigan Ryan Day is back. Because they kept running QB power, QB power, QB power. And you're like, oh my gosh, here they go. They're going to let Notre Dame back at the game. And what happens 3rd and 11? they call a go route to Jeremiah Smith. Now, the call isn't what impressed me. That's not what impressed me. Because at that point, you kind of sealed your fate. You had to do something, some sort of call where you knew Notre Dame was gonna dial up pressure. So you kind of put yourself in that position. You kind of screwed yourself. So like, that's not where credit is due. Where credit's due is that they executed. They had confidence. They said, all right, cover zero, man-to-man coverage, let's win this game. And they did it. And I don't care that it was Jeremiah Smith. Like, Jeremiah Smith's the best receiver I've ever seen as a freshman. I don't care about that. I don't care that it was, Notre Dame being dumb and leaving in one-on-one coverage. I don't care. What I care about is they executed when the chips were down. And that's what they've done all playoff. They knew when they came out game one, they had to start fast. You know what they did? They started fast. You know how many times this year we've heard Ryan Day say we got to start fast, and that they kind of clench up and fumble the bag? They did it all year. Not once did they do it in the playoff. Not once. Every single playoff game, they scored a touchdown on the first drive. Every time. Every time in a gotta-have-it moment to either steal momentum back or to keep momentum going, they executed. 14-14 against Texas. What do? 3rd and 8, they roll out and hit Carnell Tate. On 4th and 2, what do? They call a perfect play and they get the first down. In this game, and gotta-have-it moments, they got it. Can we talk about Jaden Fielding for a minute, who was scared out of his mind against Michigan and missed two field goals? He didn't miss 2 field goals in this game. And in the same building that their field goal kicker missed a game-winning attempt against Georgia, Jaden Fielding makes the field goal with confidence against a team that has blocked more kicks than anybody in college football. The story of this game and the story of Ryan Day and these seniors who have been through the ringer, who have been criticized, somewhat deservedly so, but their story is redemption. That when life got hard, when adversity came, they rallied, they changed, and they did it. That's the story. That's the legacy. Ryan Day, even if he never beats Michigan again, and that is something he has to do as an Ohio State football coach. That is something he has to do. But even if he doesn't, he will be remembered as an all-time great. He has won a national championship. And I don't think he's done. He's the youngest head coach to win a national championship since Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer was 44 when he was at Florida for his first national championship. Ryan Day's 45. He's in the prime of his career. So if he sticks around, I think he's going to win at least another one. And I think he's going to figure out the Michigan problem. Now, that's not to say that he's going to go on a run and beat Michigan 10 times in a row. But I think he's going to figure it out. I think there's going to be a couple years where they get to face off 2 and 3 times in a year. Might even be next year or the year after that. But I think Ryan Day has figured out how to have fun and how to be himself. And that to me is the narrative of this championship run. I think a few other things that I think is cathartic for Ohio State. So they reversed the 2022 curse in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. They reversed the SEC curse. They beat two SEC teams in the same playoff run. Tennessee, who they had never beaten. They beat Texas. They avenged those losses in Ohio State history. They avenged the Oregon loss. Big deal. Big deal. They avenged the Cotton Bowl from a year ago. Now, remember, last year, they looked like just an awful team against Missouri. They lost 14-3. They get revenge. They get to avenge their last home loss by beating Tennessee in their own stadium. It's amazing. Ryan Day, first coach to ever coach a team to 5 AP top 5 wins in a season. First time in Ohio State history that he's won he's beaten 2 SEC teams in a season. First Ohio State coach since Woody Hayes, either Woody Hayes or Earl Bruce, to win 2 Rose Bowls. I mean, what he's done in this run is remarkable stuff. It's beyond remarkable. Finally, AP poll came out. He beat number 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, and 10 in this regular season and in the playoff. That's insane. Just unbelievable job. Unbelievable job by Ryan Day. And he deserves a lot of credit. And I thought he would never change. He deserved the criticism, but I was wrong about that. That's the one thing I was wrong about. Wasn't wrong about the criticism. I was wrong about the conclusion. He has changed my mind. He is one of the great coaches in Ohio State history. And I could not be prouder of him, and I could not be prouder of this team. One thing I'll just say, and I know not everybody's faith-based that listens to this, go listen to some of the interviews of these players, man. They are, sometimes you hear players talk about faith and you're like, eh. But like these players, man, they truly believe in Jesus. That some of them really do. I mean, go listen to Travion after the Texas game. They're trying to ask him about his 75-yard touchdown screen pass, and all he can talk about is how he needs to repent for his penalty. It's like, dude, that's a guy who really believes. A friend of mine, he texted me after this game. He's like, my prayer for them is that their faith they would continue to be known for their faith, and that they would continue to live it out post this season. And that's my prayer for them too. It's just awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Let me finish out by saying what I think this means for the Big Ten. I think the Big Ten is doing what I thought they would. When USC and UCLA came to the Big Ten, I said from that point, this is the start of the Big Ten taking supremacy in college football. Because at some point, with NIL, with the transfer portal, the Big Ten just has more money. And you're starting to see that. Now, this is not me saying that the $20 million, the whole $20 million narrative is stupid. Okay. They did it to bring back mostly their seniors. Yes, they got Caleb Downs. Yes, they got Will Howard. Yes, they got Quinshon Judkins. They got 7 key transfers. Okay. That ain't Ole Miss. That ain't Texas A&M. That ain't Florida State. It's different. But here's my point in all this. You will start to see a separation between the Big Ten and the SEC. Maybe with the exception of Texas and maybe Georgia. But the programs in the SEC, for the most part, are regional. They have a regional reach and don't have nearly as much cachet nationally. Now, it doesn't mean they don't have wealthy donors, but it means that they are going to have a disadvantage. And they're already at a disadvantage from a media rights deal because they don't have the networks that the Big Ten does. I mean the city networks, LA, Chicago, New York, DC, Baltimore, Columbus, Indianapolis, Seattle. The Southeast doesn't have that. They have Florida, they have Texas, they have Atlanta. Other than that, like you don't have a lot of big time networks like St. Louis because of Missouri, Nashville. But you're talking about big-ish cities, but you're competing with New York, Chicago, and LA. Who's going to win that one? So the brands are better in the Big Ten. They're bigger. They have more national reach. The cities are better. So we've been saying since 2022, this was going to happen. Last year, you had Michigan versus Washington. Michigan won the national championship. This year, you had Ohio State versus Notre Dame. Both teams 2-0 against the SEC this year. The SEC is in trouble. Now, does that mean that the SEC is never going to win a national championship again? No. Does it mean that the bias is gone? No. Just look at some of the way too early top 25s. But the Big Ten's not going away. Ohio State, they're going to be good again next year. Michigan's not going to is not going to have 5 losses next year. Oregon is going to be back. They're going to be really good next year. Penn State is following the Ohio State and Michigan model. And while I'm skeptical of them, they're still going to be really good. I think they're easily going to be a playoff team. Illinois has a lot of talent coming back, and they're getting some key transfers. Big Ten's not going away. And that's not accounting for teams like Nebraska and USC and Washington and Iowa, all these other teams that are trying to make a leap. Michigan State is another one who, like, I wouldn't say that they're a playoff contender, but they're building. They've got a good coach. The thing that people have to understand is that, and this has been true for years. It was true under Jim Delaney. The Big Ten has always been playing chess while everybody else has been playing checkers. Rutgers and Maryland, everybody's saying, why would you go get them? To get their cities, to build recruiting networks. And now you've built recruiting pathways to California. You've built recruiting pathways to the DMV. The SEC, they're not going away, but you need to understand that the Big Ten is positioned now better than ever to be the preeminent conference in college football. That's what this means. I forgot Indiana. Indiana's not going away. Curt Cignetti's not going away. Not with the way that he is calling Indiana to invest in their program. So it seems fitting that this is the time for me to end my show at the end of an era, in a sense, but the beginning of a new one, where the sun is rising on the Big Ten as it sets on the SEC. It's not done. The SEC teams will probably win a national championship here in the next couple of years. I think Texas is in a really good position to do so. Again, Georgia's not going away. Alabama's not going to go away. Not with Kalen DeBoer. But they're not going to be as dominant. And I think the Big Ten will. That'll do it for the Big Ten Football Talk podcast. For now and forever. Unless the Lord chooses to do otherwise. Thanks for listening. Take care. God bless.